"I only see you as a friend who helps me out," she told me while I covered all her payments, so I stopped being her helpful friend and let her figure out her own finances. Now she wants more than friendship again. Hey folks, before we jump into the video, please consider subscribing and giving a thumbs up if you're excited for more stories like this. Thank you. Let's dive in. For 3 years, I thought Samantha Chen and I were building something real in Seattle. I'm David Martinez, a software developer who actually reads documentation for fun, and she was this ambitious event coordinator who'd moved up from Portland with big dreams and even bigger plans. We met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill where she was frantically trying to get her laptop to connect to the Wi-Fi for a client call, and I offered to help troubleshoot her connection issues. That moment led to our first real conversation about her goals, my work in tech, and how we both loved the energy of Seattle's startup scene. By month 20 though, cracks started appearing in what I thought was our foundation. The first red flag came at a networking mixer for local tech professionals where someone asked how we met. Instead of mentioning our coffee shop story or even calling it a meet-cute, Samantha smiled and said, "Oh, David helped me get settled when I moved here from Portland." Not boyfriend, not partner, not even friend initially, just someone who helped her get settled, like I was a moving company she'd hired. I felt something cold settle in my stomach, but I chalked it up to her being professional in a work setting. By the second year, the signs became impossible to ignore. She stopped tagging me in her Instagram posts about the events she attended, started introducing me as my friend David at her work functions, and when I asked about it, she claimed she was keeping her personal and professional lives separate. That might have made sense if she wasn't simultaneously expecting me to use my tech industry connections to help her land corporate event clients. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was too personal for her professional image, but my professional network was apparently fair game for her business development. The real kicker was when she'd insist we go to expensive restaurants with her potential business contacts, places that cost $150 to $200 per person, then somehow her card would always have issues when the check arrived. I'd end up covering the entire bill while she charmed some marketing director about his company's upcoming product launch event. She'd later tell me these dinners were investments in our future, but I was starting to realize that future only seemed to include me when someone needed to pay for it. The truth hit me like a badly written error message when I accidentally stumbled upon Samantha's LinkedIn profile while researching potential clients for her. There it was, clear as day, relationship status listed as single, and a bio describing herself as an independent event coordinator building her network in Seattle. Independent, single. 2 words that apparently didn't include the guy who'd been subsidizing her independence for 2 years. That discovery sent me down a rabbit hole of actually examining our financial arrangement, something I'd avoided because I trusted her when she said she was reinvesting everything back into the business. Turns out I was covering 80% of our Capitol Hill apartment rent because her startup costs never seemed to end. All utilities were in my name and paid from my account. Groceries, which somehow always included $40 organic smoothie ingredients and artisanal everything, came from my budget. The real gut punch was realizing she'd been borrowing money for event planning equipment, professional cameras, lighting setups, a MacBook Pro for editing that she never repaid but somehow always needed to upgrade. I'd essentially become an involuntary angel investor in a business that listed its founder as single. But the most troubling part was how she'd been leveraging my software industry connections. She was using my professional reputation to book corporate tech events, getting introductions through me, then presenting herself as unattached and available for those networking dinners with potential male clients. I started getting feedback from colleagues about how professional and charming my business partner was, guys who had no idea we were supposedly in a relationship. She was literally using my network to build her client base while advertising herself as single and available. When I did the math, I realized that over 2 years, I'd been funding her lifestyle and business while she built her brand on the foundation of my professional relationships, all while maintaining the flexibility to explore other options because, according to her public profile, she didn't have any personal commitments holding her back. That's when Benjamin entered the picture. He was this luxury marketing director from Nashville, temporarily consulting in Seattle on high-end corporate events, and suddenly Samantha had a lot more professional collaboration happening. She started attending weekend strategy sessions and creative brainstorming dinners with Benjamin, always emphasizing how strictly professional everything was. "He really understands the luxury market in ways that could help me expand," she'd say, coming home late on Saturday nights smelling like expensive wine and designer cologne. I might have bought the professional angle if not for the photography situation. Samantha hired Kevin, this freelance photographer, to take professional headshots for her business portfolio. When I saw the results, they looked less like corporate headshots and more like dating profile photos. We're talking soft lighting, dreamy expressions, photos of her laughing candidly in coffee shops and gazing thoughtfully out windows. These weren't the kind of images you use to book corporate events. These were the kind of images you use to book dinner dates. My suspicions were confirmed when I discovered her secret Instagram account. She'd created it under a slightly different name, and it was filled with those Kevin photos alongside captions about embracing independence and finding herself in Seattle. Benjamin was all over the comments with heart emojis and fire symbols, responding to her posts like they were flirting in public. The breaking point came when my friend Jake texted me a screenshot from a dating app. "Dude, isn't this your girlfriend?" There was Samantha, using those same professional photos Kevin had taken, with a profile describing herself as an independent event coordinator exploring what Seattle has to offer. When I confronted her, she didn't even try to deny it. "It's all networking," she said with the confidence of someone who thought I was an idiot. "I need to maintain flexibility in my business relationships. You wouldn't understand because you work in tech where everything is straightforward." The final insult came at a tech industry gala where I'd gotten us tickets through my company. When I introduced her to some colleagues, she immediately pulled Benjamin over and introduced me as David. He's been helping me get established in Seattle. Later, I overheard her telling Benjamin that she and I were transitioning to being business partners and friends. Business partners. After 3 years together, I'd been demoted to business partner at a gala I'd brought her to, while she flirted openly with a guy she was supposedly just collaborating with professionally. That night, I made a decision that felt as methodical as debugging code. If Samantha wanted independence so badly, I was going to give her exactly that, complete independence. I started with the professional network she'd been leveraging. Over the next week, I reached out to all the tech companies where I'd facilitated introductions for her, having casual conversations with my contacts about how our professional relationship was transitioning. I wasn't vindictive about it, just diplomatic, mentioning that I wouldn't be collaborating with her event planning business moving forward. The tech industry is smaller than people think, and within days, several clients canceled upcoming events with her. Apparently, some of them had hired her specifically because of my recommendation and ongoing involvement. Next came the practical stuff. I switched all shared utilities to my name only, which was easy since they'd been in my name anyway, then canceled her access to every digital service she'd been using. Netflix, Spotify, Amazon Prime, my family's shared Google storage plan, all gone. She'd gotten so comfortable with my accounts that she'd probably forgotten she didn't pay for any of them. The real test came 2 weeks later when her internet got shut off during what sounded like a crucial client video call. My phone started buzzing with desperate calls from her. "David, my internet is down and I'm in the middle of a presentation with a major client. Can you call Comcast and get it fixed?" I could hear the panic in her voice, probably realizing that independent business owners actually had to handle their own utilities. "I can't do that," I said calmly. "The account isn't in my name anymore. Independent business owners handle their own internet service." The silence on her end was satisfying in ways I didn't expect. But the final blow required timing. I waited for one of her weekend trips to Portland with Benjamin. She'd started making them regularly for their creative brainstorming sessions. While she was gone, I hired professional movers and systematically removed everything I'd purchased from our shared apartment. The couch, the dining table, the king-size bed, the 65-inch TV, the kitchen appliances, even the coffee maker that had started our whole relationship. I took only what was mine, but since I'd been funding our lifestyle for 2 years, that turned out to be almost everything. I left behind a single note on the empty kitchen counter: "Good luck with your independent career." Then I blocked her on every social media platform I could think of. But I wasn't done yet. While packing, I discovered she'd been using my professional recommendation on her business website without permission, complete with a fabricated quote about my confidence in her ability to deliver exceptional results. I contacted her hosting company and had it removed for unauthorized use of my likeness and professional reputation. That recommendation had been a major selling point for potential clients who wanted to work with someone connected to Seattle's tech scene. Without it, her credibility took a massive hit, especially with corporate clients who'd hired her based partly on my supposed endorsement. The beautiful irony was that in trying to use me as a stepping stone while keeping her options open, she'd actually made herself completely dependent on the very person she was planning to replace. When I removed myself from the equation, Her carefully constructed independent business model collapsed like a house of cards built on someone else's foundation. The aftermath was more satisfying than I'd expected, though I tried not to take too much pleasure in watching someone's life implode, even someone who'd treated me like a human ATM with networking benefits. Within a month, Samantha's event planning business was hemorrhaging clients faster than a startup burning venture capital. Benjamin, her luxury marketing guru, returned to Nashville and promptly ghosted her completely. Turns out, guys who are genuinely interested in professional collaboration don't disappear the moment they realize you're not actually single and available for more than business dinners. The discovery that she'd been in a 3-year relationship while presenting herself as an independent, unattached entrepreneur apparently didn't align with his networking goals either. Without my financial support, she couldn't afford the Capitol Hill apartment we'd shared. I heard through mutual friends that she'd been frantically trying to find a roommate, but explaining why her boyfriend's name was on all the utilities while she was listed as single on her business profiles created some awkward conversations. She ended up having to move to a studio apartment in a neighborhood that was definitely not Capitol Hill chic, the kind of place where you hear your neighbors' entire lives through thin walls and the nearest coffee shop serves Folgers instead of small-batch artisanal roasts. Her attempts to rebuild her client base hit every possible obstacle. The corporate clients who'd hired her based on her connection to Seattle's tech scene started asking uncomfortable questions when they realized I was no longer involved in any capacity. Several of them had specifically mentioned my recommendation as a deciding factor in their contracts, and when that recommendation mysteriously disappeared from her website along with any trace of our professional relationship, they began having second thoughts about upcoming events. The tech industry networking events where she'd built many of her relationships suddenly felt different too. Without me there to provide credibility and introductions, she was just another event coordinator trying to break into a market that values authentic relationships over transactional networking. People started noticing that the well-connected software developer who used to accompany her was nowhere to be found, and when they asked about me, she had to navigate the awkward explanation of why her business partner was no longer part of her business. The desperate emails started about 6 weeks after I'd moved out. Long, rambling messages explaining that she'd been confused about mixing business with personal relationships, and that she missed what they had built together professionally and personally. The professional part came first, naturally, because that's what she actually valued about our relationship. She wrote about how she'd learned so much about partnership and collaboration from our time together, and how she wanted to explore new models of working together that could benefit both of us. It was fascinating watching her try to frame her betrayal as a learning experience and her desperation as personal growth. When I didn't respond to the emails, she escalated to showing up at my new apartment in Fremont. I'd rented a place near the water with a view that actually made me happy, something I'd never prioritized when I was focused on funding someone else's happiness. She arrived on a Saturday morning with coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery near our old apartment, like she was bringing peace offerings to a business negotiation. I wanted to discuss a business partnership opportunity, she said, standing in my doorway looking smaller than I remembered. I think we could create something really innovative together. The audacity was almost impressive. Partners don't secretly maintain dating profiles while using each other's professional reputations, I said, not inviting her in. Partners don't introduce each other as former helpers at industry events. Partners don't describe themselves as single while living off someone else's income. She tried to argue, claiming she'd been exploring her identity and figuring out what she wanted from life, but I cut her off. You proved you see me as a resource, not a person. You couldn't even remember my favorite programming language after 3 years, but you memorized my LinkedIn connections. That last part wasn't entirely fair. She probably did remember that I preferred Python, but it captured the essence of how she'd valued our relationship. 3 months later, I was thriving in ways I hadn't expected. I'd started dating Rachel, a retail manager who was transitioning to become a yoga instructor. She was everything Samantha wasn't, genuinely interested in my work, insisted on splitting every check, got excited about my coding projects instead of seeing them as obstacles to social time. When I told her about my home automation hobby, she asked if I could help her set up a smart system for the yoga studio she wanted to open. She appreciated my interests instead of tolerating them, contributed equally to our shared expenses, and never once asked me to use my professional network for her benefit. Meanwhile, mutual friends kept me updated on Samantha's situation without me asking. She'd been forced to take on smaller, lower-paying events to keep her business afloat. The luxury corporate events that had been her specialty required connections and credibility she no longer possessed. Her Instagram posts shifted from confident entrepreneur content to motivational quotes about resilience and starting over, the kind of content that screams desperation to anyone paying attention. Eventually, she gave up on Seattle entirely and moved back to Portland, taking a regular office coordinator position instead of running her own business. The independent event planning career she'd built on the foundation of my support and connections couldn't survive without that foundation. She'd learned the hard way that sustainable success requires genuine partnerships rather than exploitation, though I wondered if she'd actually learned that lesson or just run out of people willing to be exploited. The final encounter came 8 months later at a Seattle tech meetup where I was presenting on automation solutions for small businesses. Rachel came with me for moral support, genuinely interested in seeing me speak and proud to be there with me. That's when I spotted Samantha across the room, apparently trying to rebuild her network by attending the same events where she'd once leveraged my connections. She looked different, less polished, more uncertain, like someone who'd lost confidence in her ability to charm her way through professional situations. When she saw me presenting, something flickered across her face that might have been regret or just recognition of what she'd lost. After my presentation, she approached our table where Rachel and I were discussing the feedback I'd received. "David, that was a great presentation. Very insightful." She was trying to sound casual, but I could hear the nervousness underneath. "Thanks," I said simply. "Samantha, this is Rachel." "Rachel, meet Samantha, someone I used to do business with." The introduction was deliberate and final. Not ex-girlfriend, not former partner, just someone I used to do business with. Because that's all she'd ever really been, even when I'd thought we were building something personal together. Samantha's face registered the dismissal, the reduction of 3 years to a brief business relationship, but she managed to maintain her composure. "Nice to meet you, Rachel. David's always been great at connecting with people." "He really is," Rachel agreed warmly. "I love how passionate he gets about solving problems. He's been helping me design systems for my yoga studio." The contrast was clear. Rachel valued my problem-solving skills and passion, while Samantha had valued my problem-solving ability to fund her lifestyle and my connections to advance her career. As we walked away, I realized I felt completely free from someone who had confused my generosity with availability and my support with obligation. The woman who'd once made me feel like I wasn't good enough had taught me exactly what I deserved, and I'd found it with someone who appreciated the real me rather than just the resources I could provide.